All praises and glory be unto the Father in heaven. For those of you that are still skeptical or still wondering whether or not I'm a real targeted individual, I'm going to be sharing some information with you and actually showing proof of a few things. True targeted individuals, we have a lot of encounters with law enforcement. A lot of times we have to deal with the courts in certain situations. And I'm just going to be sharing with you some documents showing some court proceedings that I've gone through throughout the years and give testimony and praise to the Most High for his deliverance, for him delivering me out of these court cases. I'm just going to show you the documents. I'm not going to go into too much detail as to what transpired on each one, but I just want to show you guys the court proceedings so that you guys can see that I don't just talk about my experiences. There are a lot of people that just talk about what they go through and they don't really show proof of anything. You never know if someone's telling the truth or they're just making up stories. So I think that's the one thing that makes my channel kind of unique, is that I actually will show you guys proof of what I've been through, what I'm going through. And, I give you guys raw footage of it. So back in 2015, I was arrested for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, a crime that I did not commit. I was arrested. I was placed in jail. And a good friend of mine at the time, one of my friends that had not been compromised, she actually bailed me out. So I only spent I would say the night in jail, and that next morning I was able to get out of jail because she came and bailed me out. And it was a situation to where perpetrators were basically pursuing me, and I did what I had to do to protect myself. Again, I want to be clear. No one got hurt. I did not hurt anybody. Okay? And I fought this case for 3 years, okay? Most of it I fought while living out of my car. And it was a scary situation for me because initially they were talking about giving me, was it 10 years in prison or something like that? Then they kept dismissing the case. They kept saying, of course, when they saw that I wasn't agreeing to that, my lawyer at the time would do all these resets. So it went from 10 years in prison to I think 4 years in prison, and then they kept resetting it. Then it would go down to probation. So I think it was a 10-year probation or something like that. Then it went on down to 2 years probation, and so on and so forth. So it seemed like the more they kept resetting it, the lower the consequences for the alleged crime, the penalties for it rather kept being reduced. Okay. And the lawyer that I had at the time was definitely not working in my best interest. I kept telling this individual that I wanted to have a jury trial because I am innocent. I am not going to make any kind of plea deal for something that I did not do. And from my understanding and research into gang stalking, a lot of times when they get you caught up in the court system, if you accept these probation deals and stuff like that, a lot of times what they'll do is they may try to incorporate gang stalking as one of your conditions of the probation in order for you to complete the probation, or maybe they might diminish the duration of time you have to spend on probation by actually being a gang stalker. And again, I could never be one of these people because it's not in my genetic makeup. You couldn't pay me $1 billion to be a gang stalker. I don't care how good it would get for me. I will die. So, yeah, basically, I kept telling my lawyer I wanted a jury trial. He really didn't want to go to trial. As a matter of fact, he didn't even want to be my lawyer anymore. So he pleaded for me to actually sign paperwork to release him from the case. And I thought that was very strange. And, I just felt really skeptical about that. But ultimately, I did that, and then I was given a court-appointed attorney, and it was the same song and dance with him. I kept telling him, hey, I want a jury trial. It is my constitutional right to have a jury trial. I don't know what the holdup is. All these, situations to where they're trying to get me to sign paperwork for probation and stuff like that, And it got to that point to where I was actually getting ready to sign paperwork for probation. But, man, I swear I had, angels in that courtroom, and it was the spirit just came over me, the Spirit of God came over me and just kept me from doing it. And he assured me that this case would be dismissed. And I'm going to tell you how he assured me. There was one day I went out to this lake, and it was at this resort that was kind of shut down. It was a shut down resort that nobody knew about. So I was there by myself, surprisingly. And I really enjoyed myself that day, and it was nice and sunny. And I remember laying out on this deck that kind of stretched out over the water. So I went out to the end of the deck, and I laid out on this deck. And then out of nowhere, these clouds came. And this is during the time I was praying, I was meditating, I was asking the Father, please deliver me from this court case. Father in heaven, you see everything that goes on. You see how these people conspire against me. You see how they plot and plan against me, Father. And I just pray that you deliver your child who loves and fears you. And do you know that these clouds came over me? They were dark clouds, and it started raining. And it rained for like a good 5 minutes. It rained hard, and I didn't even move. I just kind of laid there and just endured the rain. It actually felt kind of good because it was like during the summertime or whatever, and where it was kind of hot. And after that 5 minutes, do you know that those clouds cleared up and there was a rainbow that was in the sky? And all that rainbow reminded me of was the promise that God gave the earth, that he would never flood the earth again. So that was my assurance there, that I knew that the Most High was going to deliver me from that court case. Okay. And sure enough, again, I fought it for 3 years. During that time, I'll say this before I get to the end of it. During that time, I was staying with a family in Alvin, Texas. And I've mentioned this family before in videos in the past, how I mentioned to you guys that these people were not human. They were like reptilians. Not like reptilians, but they were reptilians. But anyways, they tried to get me to be a gang stalker. So essentially, the lady who invited me over to her property to be there with her family, she kept trying to pull up some kind of website. And it was like almost like a crisis actor type of website where you go and you sign up for it and you travel out. I think you're supposed to travel out to like California or something like that. And they have this seminar and they talk about how you have to be at a certain place at a certain time and do these little skits and stuff like that. I mean, that's exactly what gang stalking was looking like. So essentially, she was slick about it. The way she presented it to me was she had done research and just stumbled upon it. But to me, it seemed as if more like she was more so interested in trying to get me to sign up for it. And then she kept mentioning that, well, maybe if I just sign up for it and put my name in there, maybe the courts will go ahead and dismiss my case. And I thought that was weird that she would say that. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, and then the daughter even asked me one time, she was like, did you think we were perps when you first met us? So it was like something about the way that she said it that kind of implied that they were admitting to being perps, and they just wanted to know if they looked like perps to me, which initially I didn't think that they were. But again, the Bible does say that Satan can appear as an angel of light, and even the very elect can be deceived. Now, I'm not saying I'm one of the chosen one or elect, but I swear some of the stuff that I deal with and go through, it has to make you wonder. What prompted me to even stay with that family to begin with was because it was during that time to where the weather was about to get real cold. I've been doing a lot of praying and fasting and just asking the Most High to provide and make a way for me. And sure enough, this lady comes out of nowhere. She leaves a comment on one of my videos asking me to contact her. And when I did, she told me that she would be able to provide work for a time and shelter for a time. And she had a job that she needed immediately done. She was going to pay me $600 for. There's that number 6 again. She was going to pay me that much money for the job. And she said if I came right away, she'd give me half of it right away. And then she'd give me the other half when I finished the job. And the job had something to do with chasing squirrels or raccoons out of an attic, or setting up traps, rather, to get squirrels and raccoons out of the attic because they were messing up her property. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that family in a whole nother video, but I'm just kind of letting you know, like, during my court proceeding, I was staying with that family, and it was like they were trying to get me to sell my soul, basically, to make my court case go away. Now, the Most High allowed me to be around this family as a test, because I looked back, I was like, why would the Most High put me in a situation like that? I'm thinking that, man, angels have come to help me, and I'm going to have a place of peace and rest, which I did. I had a lot of peace and rest, and I had time to heal. They had a beautiful property. I did a lot of work working in their nursery. They had a big nursery full of plants and flowers, and it was just so beautiful. And there was just, the soil there was just so rich. You know what I mean? It was like working in there just immediately just made you feel better. So it was like they took care of me. They took me under their wing, so to speak, and they nursed me back to health, because when I got there, I was like malnourished. You know, I hadn't really been eating right. I was living out of my car. I had lost my security license temporarily because of the court case, because when you get a charge like that, you know, they will temporarily suspend your license pending the outcome of the case. And then all you have to do is just show documentation that your case was dismissed, and you can get your license back restored, or, you know, not suspended anymore. So there was just a lot that I was going through and dealing with at that time, and the Most High brought that upon me as a test now that I look back. And I passed the test. And I noticed that the lady that I was staying with, she started to come on to me, even when her husband would be at home. Mind you, her husband worked offshore 3 or 4 weeks at a time, so he spent a lot of time away from home. So he entrusted his family and his children to me. You know, it was like I was the guy to be there to kind of look after him, you know. And I had a really good relationship with the husband. I love that guy. You know what I mean? Like, that dude was like an angel to me. And there was no way that I could do anything to cause any mistrust between me and him. Now, later on down the line, it became evident and kind of clear to me that he was okay with me having sexual relations with his wife, because of the fact that he's away he's always away. You know what I mean? And you have some people that are like that, people that are kind of like wealthy, or they don't even have to be wealthy. You got some people that just have that mentality, like, oh, I'm always away from my wife. You know, let me go ahead and let my wife have a little bit of fun or whatever. And she even mentioned to me, his wife mentioned to me about times she's had flings with other guys while he was gone, and her husband knew about it. So in a way, it was like she was trying to give the okay. It was like she was trying to give the okay for me to make a move. But I you know, you're trying to do the will of the Most High and follow his words and commandments, and that would totally make me a hypocrite and a sinner, and the Most High would definitely strike me down for doing something like that. And this was an older woman. I was definitely, you know, not attracted to her. I mean, that's besides the whole point. The whole point was that, you know, it's against God's law to do something like that. And there was just a lot of weird stuff that happened. But again, I'll give a full account of that at a later time. But during my court case, that's kind of like where I was staying at. And when she saw that I wasn't responding to her subtle advances, like sometimes she would put her hand on my face or my beard, and she'd be like, oh, you're so handsome. And, you know, she'd say stuff like that. And when she saw that I wasn't responding to any of her advances, you know, the relationship became a little bit bitter, and they became kind of distant. And over time, she, you know, basically said that it was time for me to move on. So I left. And when I left, oh my God, that's when the real police harassment just started. As soon as I left that family, I was experiencing police harassment before then, but it was a lot worse once I left that family. And this is when I was in Alvin, Texas, and I was still going through my court case in Houston. You know, I still had to go to court, like, I think 2 more times. And then I went to court, and I was informed that my case had been dismissed. Like, they took it all the way up to the day of the trial. Because, like, again, I kept telling them that I wanted to have a trial. So they took it all the way up to the trial date. I was dressed up. I had my white shirt on with my, you know, my tie and black slacks and, you know, polished shoes, and I was ready to go. I had my diagrams that I had composed myself. I went to Office Depot, got poster boards, print out some enlarged versions of maps, and I just had everything together to fight my case or whatever. So they saw that I was good to go, and I can assure you the state does not want to take an L from a targeted individual. I can assure you of that. So they knew with my intelligence and me being able to articulate very well, you know, I had a very, very strong chance. I knew in my heart that I was going to win that. So what they did was They had all the jury there, which they all looked like perps. Everybody that was standing outside that courtroom that was waiting to go in, the jurors there and stuff like that, it was like majority of them, if not all of them, they were like perps. Because they were all in their phones, looking in their phones, looking up at me, looking in their phones, looking up at me. I'm like, oh my goodness, here we go. But the only thing that was on my mind was to have no fear. Like the Most High kept telling me, do not fear, do not fear. So I stood bold as a lion and I was ready to go. And they had me standing outside the courtroom, of course, for like hours. And then finally my lawyer came out and he informed me that my case had been dismissed. And as soon as my lawyer informed me that that case had been dismissed, there was a loud, the most blood-curdling, loud, cackling laugh I have ever heard in my life. It was totally a witch's laugh. So it was this woman who just started laughing as soon as my lawyer said that, right? So as soon as she started laughing, because I didn't show any emotion, right? Because I guess they were expecting for me to jump and celebrate and be like, oh, thank goodness and stuff like that. I stood there with a poker face when he told me that. I was happy on the inside, but still it was like, I'm going to keep my expressions neutral and I'm going to keep my poker face and I'm just going to walk out of there with my head up. So again, after the lawyer said that, you know, the case had been dismissed or whatever, what did I do? I walked out of there and I knew in my heart something was wrong. I just couldn't really pinpoint it. So I walked out of there and at the time I was working a warehouse job. They had given me some time off to actually deal with my court stuff. And I went back to working at my warehouse job or whatever. And after about a month of working at the warehouse, I was still living in my car. I'm trying to recall. I'm so sorry. There's some cloud that's just moved into my brain all of a sudden. So please bear with me. Okay, so there was one night that I found a parking spot at this park to park at and go to sleep so that I can go to work the next day, which was very close to where my job was. And that particular night, I had an encounter with law enforcement, and they had all this set up. Okay, so they pulled up to me. They asked me what I was doing, yada, yada, yada. I told them that I live out of my car. I'm asleep. I got work in the morning. I just try to find a nice spot to sleep at and just get some rest before I have to get up for work. So it's like, oh, okay, well, do you have any ID? Yada, yada, yada. I didn't think nothing of it. I said, let me just give them my ID so they can get the hell out of my face. So I gave them my ID. Of course, I was respectful, cordial, and all that, as I usually am with law enforcement. Gave them my ID. She comes back and she tells me that I have a warrant out of Montgomery County. And I'm thinking to myself, why in the hell would I have a warrant out of Montgomery County? And it dawned on me that when the incident happened of the assault, it started in Montgomery County, but the actual alleged crime did not occur until I got out of Montgomery County. So do you know what these bastards did at Harris County? What they did was, and this is why I didn't get any paperwork stating that it was dismissed, because it had not been completely dismissed, because Harris County decided to refer the case back over to Montgomery County. Then Montgomery County decides to pick it up. Now, mind you, this is after 3 years that I have been fighting in Harris County, fighting my case to get it dismissed. And then all of a sudden, they want to transfer it over to Montgomery County. So that totally screws me over. Those cops ended up arresting me. This was like Webster police. They arrested me. And I could tell that the lady, you know, she had sympathy for me or whatever. I could just see it in her eyes and stuff like that. Like she knew I wasn't a bad guy or whatever. And she's just doing her job. So they took me in. I stayed in the Webster County jail overnight. And then the next morning, they took me to Harris County. They drove me all the way to downtown Houston to the Harris County jail. I stayed in Harris County for about, I'd say maybe 5 days or something like that before Montgomery County came to pick me up finally. Then when I went to Montgomery County, I was in Montgomery County for 3 weeks. Okay, for 3 weeks. Awaiting trial for the aggravated assault charge. Okay, there's the number 3. You know, these people they always like showing me the number 3 or 33 or 666. I don't, you know, it's their demonic witchcraft ritual stuff that they like to do to us. Do you know that these fools had me in a section where they keep pedophiles? Like, I had my own cell. And the reason why I had my own cell, let me tell y'all this, was because they were in there trying to inject people with TB so they can see if they have TB. I don't have TB. I don't have any diseases. And there was no way that I was going to let them inject me with a dead virus to test me for TB. So their protocol or procedure with that is that those inmates that refuse that, they're going to have to be in a cell by themselves. And it worked out for me because I really didn't want to share, be in jail with a bunch of other people that are perps or whatever. So it was cool. It was fine with me. But they put me in a section where they had like pedophiles. So essentially my cell was placed across the way from a tank of inmates who were all in there for some type of pedophile charge. Now, I don't judge people. I didn't really look at those people with hate because I don't know if they really committed the crime or not. Because look at my situation. I'm being locked up over some bullshit, over some stuff that I didn't even do. So who am I to get upset? And I think that's what they wanted. They had me across the way from pedophiles because they figured that that was going to really enrage me, and I was going to give the correction officers a really hard time, and then that would give them even more of a reason to keep me in jail longer. So the whole time, the Most High kept his spirit upon me. I stayed calm and cool. There was another inmate that was next door to me. We didn't share a cell, but we could hear each other from around the way. The setup was kind of weird. It was like the back of the cell had like this little hallway, but there was a gate on it. We could talk. We could like toss each other, like if we needed a pen or something like that, or if someone was out of toilet paper. Hey man, could you help me out? I need some toilet paper. I ran out. Sure, man, I got you. And I'll toss him my roll of toilet paper so he could use it. Or commissary, if I bought something on commissary, if I wanted to share, that was just a means of being able to communicate and pass things to each other. So the guy was an informant. He worked for law enforcement, setting people up to get them busted for drugs. And he shared a lot of information with me about how the police used him to set people up. And he knew about gang stalking. He experienced some things himself. So it was just really nice sharing stories with this guy. He was a faggot. He was a homosexual. But again, he was a good person. I don't hate homosexual people. I do not agree with the lifestyle. And you will never see me at another homosexual's wedding. I do not condone any type of homosexual activity whatsoever. But I can talk to them. I can deal with them, but I just don't indulge in the lifestyle. So he was actually bisexual because he talked about having a girlfriend too and stuff like that. But anyways, so yeah, finally, after being in there for 3 weeks, I went to my final court date there to determine whether or not they were even going to let me go to trial. And do you know, when they had me in shackles, it was like a bunch of us that they would take at one time to go to court. So they had all of us in shackles. I had shackles on my arms, my wrists, my legs. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was like the chain gang that they had going. And we go up into the courthouse, and we had to go up the stairs. So we're walking up the stairs. Do you know, one of the sheriff deputies said, "Hey, Ochu." He was like, "Hey, Ochu." That's all he kept saying. And everybody was quiet. You know what I'm saying? It was like almost as if like everybody knew who he was talking about. And it was like they just kept quiet. And as I kept walking, he was like, "Hey, Ochu. Hey, Ochu. Hey, Ochu." You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay, so these people obviously, watch my channel and stuff like that. So I go up in the courtroom. When my lawyer sees me, man, he gives me the most biggest smile I had ever seen in my life. Like, I knew it was good news based on the smile that he had gave me. And when I walked in the courtroom, he spoke directly to me in front of like the court officials and stuff like that. He was like, "Hey, how are you?" Like very warm and kind of like, I don't know, it was just a very warm greeting that he gave me. So I knew in my heart that it was good news. So we're sitting in the courtroom, and then he finally comes up to me with the paperwork, and he tells me that my case has been dismissed. And let me show y'all the paperwork. So this is the paperwork from Harris County, the state of Texas versus my name. I blacked out the parts where my name goes because obviously I don't want to have this paperwork on YouTube and it shows my name, but I'm just showing you the official documents. So this is the initial case with Harris County, right here. So this is Harris County District Clerk, and the case details, the file date was 11/25/2015. The case status was dismissed. The charge was aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and it was a felony indictment. Okay, and this paperwork just pretty much shows, and the judge was Judge Denise Collins. She was a reptilian, but I will say this, she was fair, and I don't know what it was about that woman, but I don't even know if I should be saying it. I mean, she's an older woman, but she's just like a very beautiful woman, and it was like she knew what was going on, you know what I mean? And it was like, in a way, she was kind of proud of me for standing up for myself and not giving in and not accepting the deals that they were trying to give me, because they knew it was all BS. So maybe there are reptilians that are good serpents and bad serpents. I don't know, but I don't know what it was about her. I got like kind of like a good vibe from her. Like she was a fair judge, and she was never mean to me. She was always real nice to me, and she never screamed at me. Like, I witnessed her like really go off on people in that courtroom. But when it got to me, it was like, man, she was just calm, and just, I guess she sensed that I was calm and I had a peaceful spirit about me, I guess. So that in turn made her feel kind of comfortable, I guess you could say. They even allowed me to go to the back area where they have the lawyers at. They allowed me to go back there one time, like during the day of the trial. Like, they walked me back there and stuff like that. I was like, what the hell? Like, nobody ever gets to go back there. So it was really strange. But anyways, that was my judge. Bond amount was $30,000. I had a good friend at the time. You know, we still talk to this day. She actually bailed me out. And, you know, she was really there for me. It's like God sent her to help me. But this just shows, like, the case details and stuff like that. What else? They tried to do the psychological examination because I explained to my lawyer about gang stalking. I did not use the term gang stalking, okay? But I gave him a gist of what was going on. I even gave him the card that I got from the FBI. Yeah, let me try to pull that card out again and show y'all on this video. I may have to make a part 2 because this video is going longer than what I wanted it to be or whatever. So 1 second. I'm just trying to pull this thing out so I can show y'all again. For the newer people that watch my channel, you know, that just recently started following and just want to kind of understand everything or whatever, just for the sake of that, let me show y'all this card again. This is a card from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. It was Special Agent Glenn Gregory, the Houston Violence Crime Task Force. He confirmed what I was experiencing was real, and he let me know that he knows what's going on with the situation. There's nothing they can do about it, and that they have their hands tied. And the reason for my encounter with him, because there was an individual in Louisiana who who killed some law enforcement officers. He was also being gang stalked, and it was found out that me and this individual had spoken on the phone a couple times, so the FBI was interested in speaking with me about what had happened. So that's how I came to have this encounter with this agent. And he confirmed that I was not lying, that they know that I'm not crazy, and they know what's going on. So when the court started talking about psychological examinations and stuff like that, that's when I presented them with this card. And they indeed spoke with Agent Glenn Gregory, and he confirmed with them, you know, that, you know, I don't know exactly what was said, but I never took a psychological exam or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? Because obviously FBI confirmed my meeting with them. So, but yeah, these are just the motions that were filed by the attorney and stuff like that, and you know, and all that stuff. So I'm just showing y'all everything, and let's see. So yeah, and I'm trying to get, so yeah, when it got down to the last part here, and that's where you see on October 29th of 2018, dismissed. Okay, so this is what they told me by word of mouth. But what they did was they referred it to Montgomery County. Okay, they referred it to Montgomery County, and this is the Montgomery County paperwork. So they were slick about it. It was like they couldn't let me get away with it. They had to get me in jail some kind of way. So they had me stay in jail for 3 weeks. After that 3 weeks, when I went to court, this is when I got this paperwork. So it was also dismissed. This was a motion to dismiss. Okay. Then it says, now comes the state of Texas by and through her district attorney and respectfully requests the court to dismiss the above entitled and numbered criminal action for the following reasons. And this one was for in the interest of justice. Okay, they had completely violated my constitutional right to a speedy trial. They violated my constitutional right to have a trial of a jury trial of my peers, because they kept dismissing my case for years. They kept not dismissing it, but they kept resetting. So they were in violation of my constitutional right. It is important for you guys to do your research on your, I know there are TIs out there that are right now dealing with stuff with the courts. It is important to do research and to learn the law so that you can use it to protect yourself. Use their laws against them. You know, I don't really consider these laws my laws. I'm more interested in following the laws of the Most High. But when you're in situations to where they try to pull you into their court nonsense, it's important for you to use their own BS against them. So make sure you're very well versed on the law. You don't need a lawyer to file motions. You can do that yourself. You don't have to be a lawyer to represent your own self in court. Do the research, file your own motions. When my case was dismissed, I filed my own motion to receive my firearm back. Okay?